Okay, so one of the things that I want to show you how to do today is use SEO and keyword tools and things like that to help you find what people are searching for in your podcast niche so that you can then provide them exactly the content they are looking for. And I'm going to show you how I do this. So where I start when I'm creating my podcast every single week, and it's a solo podcast, so I don't have interviews, but one of the first places I come is to my Surfer. Surfer SEO is the app that I use. It's the software for all of my keyword tools. I'm going to show you how to use this in a very, very powerful way to put you in front of as much traffic as you can on your podcast. So I come here, and the first things you can see is this is within my Surfer account. So this is what the dashboard looks like. And I have done audits on a bunch of different stuff. So you can see this dashboard here. But I'm going to go to my keyword research tab right here. And so within the keyword research, I can look up a domain, a URL, keywords, or other things. And you can see that I am looking up, I'm just going to start with a very broad search. I'm going to start with a broad search, and I'm going to do like grow a podcast. And I'm going to do like promote a podcast. All right. So I've got both of these here, and I'm going to do keyword content editor and keyword research for create a podcast and grow a podcast. So you can look down here in my keyword research tool. I can go and I can click here, and it's going to tell me I've got my keywords up here, grow a podcast and promote a podcast. I can see right now that people are over 1,000 people searching for podcast promotion, and I can see that people are searching for promote podcast. Let me make this a little smaller, and you can see that people are searching for almost 1,000 people searching for how to promote a podcast. You just got a lot, and I've got this ranked by volume. So I can see here that thousands of people every single week are searching for advertise podcast, podcast marketing, podcasts in marketing, podcasting marketing, podcast on marketing. Like I can see marketing, promotion, growing a podcast are things that people are looking for. So I'm using this keyword research tool to determine kind of what my podcast topics are going to be about. This week, I am going to do a podcast about how to use this type of tool to get in front of as much podcast traffic as possible. So it is podcast marketing. So one of the things that I'm doing is I'm looking for grow a podcast and promote a podcast. And let's look at podcast marketing. Marketing a podcast, advertising your podcast marketing tips. Let me rank these by search volume. 2,400 people are asking how to advertise their podcast every single month. And so within this, I can see like people are searching for ways to do podcast advertisements. They're looking for ways to do paid podcast promotion. They're looking for how to advertise on a podcast. They're looking for podcast advertising. They're looking for advertising podcast. So there's a lot of different things that people are looking for when it comes to growing a podcast. So if I go back to grow a podcast, and one of the things I want to see is, okay, they're talking about podcast promotion. They're talking about how to market a podcast. These are words that I want to create content around, and I want to have content that meets exactly what people are looking for. One of the things I'm going to do is how to grow a podcast audience. And let's see if I run keyword research on 170 people a month are searching for how to grow a podcast audience. But 1,000 people a month are searching for how to promote a podcast. And they're not just looking for how to promote a podcast, which is right here, almost 880. They're looking for where to promote a podcast, how to promote your podcast promotion, how to promote a podcast. They're looking at all of these different things. And SERP right here, SERP similarity is search engine ranking page, I think is what that's called. I'm going to show you how I go from keyword research here because I know people are looking to promote a podcast. So I did my keyword research and I kind of know thousands of people every single month are looking for this. So I am now going to go into my content editor. Okay, so now I'm going to take you to Braindump, which is the app I use to organize my thoughts. And I have a framework that I use for every podcast episode. And my framework is I create the hook. It's also a cold open. I tell the story of the framework. I have a quick ad break, and that's to promote my products and services. And then I teach the framework, and then I have a closing call to action. So what I wanted to show you is I generally go in here, and when I'm creating the hook, I end up writing out my podcast, essentially, outline. It's not even an outline. It's actually my podcast script. So once I write this out, and then this is the way I speak it and record it into my podcast, then what I am going to do is I'm going to take this and I'm going to copy it right into my Surfer SEO, because here's the thing. Surfer SEO doesn't just give me keyword research. Like, you can find keyword research in a lot of different places. So that's not the unique thing here. But I've got some content editing that I can do around how to promote a podcast. So I'm going to go ahead and hit create content editor on how to promote a podcast. I'm going to show you how, now that I've done my keyword research, I came up with my title of my episode, and the title of my episode is going to be, it's right here, how to promote a podcast, right? Because I'm using the exact keyword, how to promote a podcast, that I know 880 people are looking for each month on Google without social media or paid ads. And so I'm going to essentially take that content, I copied it, and I am now creating a content editor on how to promote a podcast. And I'm going to show you what I do. And I'm going to show you a before and an after, because I've done my keyword research to come up with my topic. I've gone to Braindump and I've written about the content that I'm going to put out there. I've written all that down. I've got my episode. I've got my outline that I'm going by. I've got all the text there. So then I have recorded it. But now it's time for me to take that script and I'm going to keyword optimize it, SEO optimize it for how to promote a podcast, right? So this is the content editor within Surfer. Now, here's the thing. I am going to just simply take and paste. Okay, so I just took and pasted my entire script that I used and I spoke into how to promote, the how to promote a podcast audio for the podcast. I took it in and I put it right here, and I want you to see where this content starts. It had a content score of 30. Now over here, Surfer SEO is going to rank my content score, and it's going to give me grades that are going to have to do with the quality of the content and the relevancy of the content I'm creating for the title that I've decided that it's going to be called. So you can see right now, and I could look here and see all my details: structure, headings, terms, and NLP. These are kind of how it's graded on. So right now, I have 1,652 words. That was the audio portion of my podcast. If I didn't ad lib, which I probably did, that would be exactly the number of words I spoke for my podcast. This number underneath here is telling me 4,613 to 5,305 is telling me how many words ideally, if I want to rank content in Google about how to promote a podcast, then that is the average number of words that other competing posts that are ranking are using. Then we go to headings. It's telling me I have 0 headings right now. I just have my title of my podcast. And headings are very important. Google likes you to use the H1, H2, and H3 tags for SEO. And so it's telling me that I need to use 56 to 131 headings inside my 4,600 to 5,300 words total that I'm writing. Gonna need at least, I've got 56 paragraphs right now, and Google says that in order to rank, or the content that is currently ranking on Google for this topic has at least 144. And then images, I don't have any images yet because I've just done text, and it's 15 to 26 images. So you can see, like, this is the full picture of what is going on with SEO for a podcast, or SEO for content on Promote a Podcast. So what you can see right here is that, number one, SEO is way more intricate than you think. So when someone says just keyword optimize, like, it's not just about keyword optimize. It's also about the format and the structure of your content. Now, let me tell you something amazing. What it has done for me. You can see this whole section down here. And it has words like how to promote a podcast, podcast promotion, podcast listeners, Google Podcast, podcast episode, Apple Podcast. All of these are words, key words that I need to have in this content in order for it to be rankable in Google. Like, if I want to rank my stuff, I've got to compete with what's out there. And already the content that is out there has this much. But here's the cool thing. It's not just stick this word in here one time. You see, it's telling me I need to use the word how to promote a podcast 5 to 9 times. It's currently, in the way it's in the form it is, which is unedited, used one time. So once I get to 5, you can see right here, a podcast episode. You can see that it says 3 to 6 times is what I should be doing, and I have 4 times in here. So it's turned green because that word, podcast episode, is not a word I need to use anymore. And if I used it like 12 times, I would be overusing it and it could hurt me. So you want to stay within the optimal range, and it will tell you that. So, for example, if I needed to use a word podcast episode and I've already used up my 6 times to be an optimal range, I would maybe say podcast post. I would maybe say podcast show or weekly show, or use other words that would mean the same thing, but just not use that exact same word, because I don't want to seem like I'm stuffing keywords in that don't have any relevancy. So essentially what you would do then, and I'm going to go and show you, this is what I did. So again, my number is starting out with 30, and I'm going to tell you something about this. If you're like me and you're competitive, you want to just keep doing things until you can score 100. Because if you have a 100 score, that's better than any other score out there. Well, that is true. But when it comes to content with Google, what is going to happen is, it's like you need to build authority for your website. Google needs to see you posting frequently. It needs to see you posting high quality content frequently. It needs for your content to be relevant to your URL and your keywords and all of these things on your website. And that all plays into whether Google shows your stuff or not, right? And if it gets returned as an option and high up in the page rankings for some of these topics in your niche. So right now, my content right out of the gate was a 30. And so this, you can see how this red tells me I need to do more, right? If I got it up here into the yellow, it's like red, yellow, and green, then I've got some work to do, but it's not as bad as being in red. And then if I can get up here, and actually this green starts from a 70 to 100. That's the range. So it's theoretically, Google would give me a higher ranking on content if on my website, every single post I did was a 70 or a 71 or a 72, and I posted frequently. So if I post once a week and I have score 70 or more on my content from a SEO perspective, that is going to be much better than me posting once every other month, but having a 100. on that. Okay. So more of a 70 or more, but you don't need to stop and perfect it and go all out and do, unless you're doing like, foundational types of content or anchor content or whatever that you're putting out there, that you want to take the extra time to get it all the way to 100. So let me show you what I did. I took this same script, and this is what I ended up with. I went through, and you can see now this has changed a little bit. Okay. So I'm going to make a change right now because I am on this particular thing. I am trying to I want it to rank as high as possible. But like I've only used Promote a Podcast. It needs to be 6 to 15 times. I've only used it 3. But Promote a Podcast is going to be in my URL. Promote a Podcast needs to be in my first sentences. So I need to figure out ways to add that in more, just because it's in my title. It's my main keyword, Promote a Podcast. So I'm still going to do a little bit of work here. But what I've done is I've already gone through, and you can see how this content has changed. And you can see the score now is a 73. And this is what I ended up going with for my show notes and my blog post this week on my podcast episode. So 1,753 words. I think we originally said it was like 14 something. So 1,753 words. It's still not up where it needs to be from the total word score. I have 10 headings, and I need 57 to 131. But you can see what I've done is I've gone through here, and inside this content editor, I can take this and I can go up here and make a heading 1, heading 2, heading 3. These are all heading 2s. But if I went ahead and made subheadings on here, and let's just see, I'm just going to do this as an example. Don't promote your podcast the average way. Okay, so I'm just going to take this and I'm going to highlight it. Now I've got I'm going to say a podcast because that's what my keyword needs to be. And see, this is just a guide because now I'm already almost up into the optimal range here for that promote a podcast. I'm going to take this and I'm going to change it to a heading 3. So you can see it's smaller, right? But it's subheadings within this, right? So one of the ways that I could add more of these headings is do H2, like the title is H1, these are H2, and then do more H3 headings. And Google is going to love it when I have my podcast broken down this way in text form, because I'm making it scannable, I'm making it easy. They don't penalize you for breaking it down and not having like 3-sentence paragraphs or anything like that. Like a paragraph can be 1 sentence. That's what you want to keep in mind. So I'm going to do this right here. So now you can see every time I do these, I'm adding more headings on. My heading number is going up. And I'm just going to do a few more things to show you there's these 2 words right here, promote a podcast. I'm going to go through and look for ways that I've already used the word promote a podcast or promote something, and I might have said your podcast, and I need to say a podcast. And that way I can get this, and I'm going to see if I can get the ranking to go up a little bit more, just so you can see how each little tweak you make can do this. So let me see what I can change here. Okay, so what I have done is I have spent a few minutes going through this article. And again, like I say, it started out here in Braindump as my script for my podcast. And then I would say, since I recorded the podcast, I did the audio for it, and I used keyword research. I started over here in my keyword research in Surfer. Then I went over here to Braindump, and you can do a Google Doc. You can do, whatever you can keep your framework straight with how you present your podcast in a way that's going to be productive. I created my script, and then I brought my script back over and created a content editor in SEO, Surfer SEO. And what I did is I pasted the exact script there. And again, we started out at a 30, I believe it was. It was right down here. It was like a 30. And whenever I had brought you in, I showed you that I had improved it to a 73. I spent a few more minutes to get it to an 80. And what you can see, a couple of the things that I did, my keywords, look at what I've done with my keywords. All of these most important ones here at the top, I have met the optimization. Now, when you first came on, a lot of these had some deficiencies and they were in the yellow or red, so they hadn't really been met yet. So this is one of those things that you can just spend a few minutes trying to do this, because this will make a huge difference. And so we went from, I think, when I initially started and pasted my script in here, 1,400 words to now about 1,500 words. I now have 25 headings, 83 paragraphs, and a majority of at least the top of the keywords ticked off on here. Now, I have a few lower on the list here that I don't have. And I could probably do some more tweaking and changing. I'm not sure that it was worth the time investment at this point. But then I also went through and I already had my H2 tags, which are these bigger headings. And then I went through and created some more H3 heading tags to create more headings. And so what I've done is just tried to break it up and keep my paragraphs short. I don't want any, I don't want a wall of text anywhere. And so people just get overwhelmed at this point whenever they try to read a wall of text. So I've just gone in and tried to make sentences short, paragraphs short. I've tried to make it scannable, and I'm trying to make it where it doesn't matter what type of reader that you are, you can read and scan through and get the gist of what you need to get through out of this content. And that's kind of what I've done. So now I've got this article that has gone from a 73 to an 80. So I'm just going to take this and I'm going to replace the article that's on my website right now that's a 73 with this one. And so I'm doing this, and ultimately over time, it's going to help me capture some of the traffic that is out there for SEO, of people that are podcasters that are looking and searching in Google for how do I promote my podcast? How do I grow my podcast audience? How do I do all of these things? And you can see these are the words and the keywords that I've got it optimized. I think many times in podcasting, we think keyword optimization is about one keyword, but what you'll find out whenever you really use a tool like this is you'll find out that it's more of, instead of focusing on one keyword like promote a podcast or podcast promotion, it's more about a lot of the peripheral ways that you can say the same things and use the same relevant keywords in the same saturation. And so that way you can get a higher ranking and a higher page ranking, and search traffic comes automatically whenever your articles and your content is returned in Google. So again, I've made a huge improvement getting the score from a 73 to an 80, and that's going to be good enough. It's just going to be completely good enough. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to replace my content on my website with that. One of the other things that I want to show you, and this is a thing that is still in beta right now, but it is a fabulous tool. And if you can use this content planner tool, I'm going to do a complete video about it, but I just wanted to show you. My specialty is monetizing podcasts. And in order to monetize podcasts, you obviously have to have traffic there, right? So one of the things that I do is I came into the content planner, and monetize a podcast is my specialty. So I wanted to see what their content planner summary would tell me. And this is ways that if I'm creating content, this is sort of my roadmap to creating content. So I did keyword searches, and how to make money podcasting comes up as a very high ranking one. So if I'm looking at all of these different things, keyword clusters for the main topic about monetizing a podcast, and you can see right here it says, what does this say? This little let me hover. Each tile is a keyword cluster that should become a separate article on your website. Clusters are ordered by relevance to the seed keyword. So my seed keyword is monetize a podcast, and there are 71 clusters around the main topic. Now, if you're putting out a weekly podcast, 71 clusters around your main topic is almost a year and a year and a quarter. Yeah, a year and a half of weekly podcast episodes. That's like 72 or 71 weeks of podcast episodes. But the thing is, what I can do here is I can look at, like, if I was really wanting to SEO my website and be dominant and be an authority website for monetizing a podcast, by creating all of this content, I could do that. So here's the thing. What I will do is, and you can see I've got 71 clusters here, and it gives me ideas for what type of content to create that is going to feed into ranking for that keyword. But look, let me show you something else here. I want to show you this. I can sort these by search volume. Ding, ding, ding. What did we just do keyword research for? Search volume, right? So what I'm going to do is go into customer investigation. This tells me this is a cluster dominated by comparison of different products and or services, listings, catalogs, directories relevant to the cluster. So let me go into this cluster, and I can see 11 detailed keywords. Okay. They're all right here. Podcasting gets 301,000 monthly search volume on the Google. Castos podcasting gets 110. Hosting podcasts gets 5,400. Now, in podcasting, we don't know whether hosting podcast is a search referring to actually being a host, a physical host of a podcast, or if it is talking about hosting companies that host and create podcast RSS feeds. Podcasting platforms, Castos podcast hosting, podcast distribution, podcast hosting platform. See what I've got? All of these right here. Free podcasting services, how to host a podcast for free. So, and if I drill down into each one of these, I can take all these out, the ones that aren't as much, traffic. So monthly search volume is 312,860. Total traffic is 4,457. Now, once they release this and it's not in beta anymore, it will give me a ranking difficulty. Like, it'll tell me whether it's going to be easy for me to rank on this or hard to rank. But if I go straight from this 312,000 monthly searches from podcasting, hit my create content editor, I can now begin creating. So again, playing the odds. The traffic is out there. I just have to jump in front of enough of it. And I'm going to do that 3 ways. I'm going to create podcast content audibly that will then be found on all the podcast apps. That same podcast content, I'm then revising and creating SEO optimized, highly ranked, like an 80 score on the ranking for rankability for my content. And then from there, I'm going to create more content, and I'm probably also going to link it with videos on YouTube, because I'm making this video right now about how to promote a podcast, how to grow a podcast using these SEO tools. Okay, so my content editor with my NLP analysis was created a few minutes ago. So now I can go into my content editor and now I can begin, because this is what the beauty of this is. Like, you might think I'm trying to do some content around podcasting. Well, what aspect of podcasting do I need to talk about? Well, right now, I now have keywords that I need to use. And I can see from these keywords that it's talking a lot about the technical aspects of podcasting, creating episodes, audio files, RSS feeds, podcast hosting, all of these things, creating cover art. Like, now I just need to create content. I need one that's at least 3,686 words to 4,238 words. I should have 35 to 63 headings. I should have at least 101 paragraphs, and I would at least want 14 to 23 images within that content. And those images should be optimized as well within my website for SEO. So when you look at it this way, it is so much more productive for your traffic, getting traffic to your content, to your stuff, than just hit and miss. Oh, I don't know what to name my podcast title this week. I don't know what to name this episode. I don't know how SEO optimized things are. And so for this is going to pay off in spades if you will do this every week. I love the Surfer SEO tool. I will use it for every piece of content I put out because I would be a fool not to. It costs me about $100 a month. I think maybe $119, maybe $109, $119 a month, but it is worth every penny because it brings to my fingertips an audit for my website, a keyword research tool, a search engine page ranking analyzer, gives me my content planner. And honestly, from my content planner, I could go out from podcasting for the words podcasting and monetizing and that sort of thing. And if I looked at this and I knocked this piece of content out of the way this week, and this piece of content out of the way next week, and this piece of content out of the way, eventually I would want to create podcast related content and website content for all of these. And then what is going to happen? The more of these I do, you can see I have one right here for how to make money podcasting. It's ranked a 90 and it's already been published to my website. So these are the things that are going to make you smarter than everyone else that's out there. And this tool helps you do it. There's so many other things about this tool I could show you, but I don't want this video to go on forever. So if you want to put the link to Surfer in the bottom here in the description, and I'm an affiliate. If you want to sign up under my affiliate, I'd love to have you. I believe there is some free credits that you can get, some free search credits for signing up under my affiliate. But if you have questions about it, I'm always here to help as well. So anything I can do to help you become a highly desirable traffic maven for your podcast, then a maven or maverick, whatever you want to call it, for your podcast, and you can get all of this traffic organically. That means you save money on paid ads. That also means that you are less frustrated, less exhausted, and you don't have to be all things to all people on social media. So I hope that is enough of an incentive for you to say, you know what? Throw away my social media tools, get a Surfer SEO tool, spend the $100 a month, and it will pay off in spades because it will save you the $100 a month you're spending on Facebook ads, or the $100 a month you're paying or more that you're paying somebody to handle all your social media stuff. Like, those are the things that are going to make the big difference and move the needle for you. So I hope this video has been helpful. If you want to listen to my podcast, it's called Podcast Monetization Secrets, but you'll also be seeing regular video content as a supplement to that podcast channel. So I hope you'll come back and let's monetize our podcast together. Come on, join me.